we have James. He is wondering, what was the original tartan the Scottish Highlanders wore? It must have been used with colors from plants that was available in the area. Must have been some color variant in the Highlands with great kilts, but was wondering what tartan was used, and he's looking to get something like that for himself.
We're saying Highlanders specifically.
He's saying Scottish Highlanders wore, yes.
The no one really knows what the first tartan was, and frankly, the first tartan probably wasn't in Scotland. That said, mills and dye houses in in a particular region would use, yes, you're correct, the local plants to dye the yarn, the wool, and make it into specific colors. The tartans kind of originally started out as regional things. It would be just a generic pattern. It didn't, Moses didn't come down from the mount and say, here you go, here are the clan tartans, go forth and be clannish. It kind of evolved over time. So it was a mill who used specific colors because that's what they could get locally. And then they would weave a pattern or two pattern or whatever they thought was, commercially viable to weave. And the people who lived in that area would buy from that mill, and that would be the tartan that they would have.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question I'd say from an archaeological standpoint. I know that I don't know what the exact colors or the vegetable dyes used in the Falkirk tartan are. The Falkirk tartan, it's not really a tartan, but is the oldest example of tartan fabric. It was basically a remnant of cloth which somebody had wrapped some coins in before burying it so that the Romans wouldn't get it when they came through to do their the tax collection. So I think it's Falkirk. Am I thinking of Falkirk?
I think you are. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We'll edit it later if I'm wrong. But I would say that you could take an educated guess in terms of like some of the most popular natural dyes are madder based. There's woad, and then there's nut based stuff. And I don't know how many nut trees naturally grew in the Highlands back in the day. Madder dyes were probably common, but you don't know what the trade routes brought in. I think of the Highlands as being relatively isolated and limited in terms of the vegetation you could use to create dyes with. So, but I'm imagining it'd probably be something like a rust and a blue base, maybe with some orangish red in it from madder dyes. And Mac was over here nodding his head like he knew something. Does it ring a bell with you?
I was just agreeing with.
Oh, you're just agreeing with me with likelihood.
With some of the dye runs. Yeah, you just don't know what's exactly the trade route could bring anything in.
Yeah, and then it becomes a question of what you can afford if you're asking your household, wife or whoever who's doing the dyeing to make something with this. Did you have to pay for it or trade for it, or is it something that really just literally grew outside your yard? I think madder dyes for like rusts and reds and some yellows, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to ask the wife. And then woad for the bluish green colors. But that's an educated guess. We'd have to look into it to be sure. But yeah, nobody really knows beyond educated guesses, I don't think. Because I don't. What's the Yeah, we're talking really early. Then you have to go back past like the earliest examples of extant kilts too, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking the other example I had in my head aside from Falkirk would have been like the shepherd's check. Just the black and white kind of pattern.
Yeah.
So there's not really color in that so much as black and white.
But I've seen versions of shepherd check which were again like a rust tan color and then a blue.
Okay.
So that might, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very good question.
It didn't start off with the symbolism that we have in it today. It was just a pattern that people liked and bought. So hope that helps.
This question reminded me of a time when my wife went to present at a medieval conference in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And she wound up getting into a conversation with a professor who had never understood how drop spinning works. He was so into his box as a professor that he hadn't thought about actually trying the thing that he was supposed to be talking about. And she had to teach him how to do it. So what I'm getting at is anything you get into like this is interdisciplinary. It may be that you want to study history, it may be you want to study archaeology, and maybe you want to study fabrics and natural dyes and chemistry. There's a lot to learn. If you're enjoying this like we are, please give us ideas below on what else we should research.